Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you because I do have slides for this. Yes, we're going to talk about how to pet a cat. This is 5 minutes of cat pictures, folks. Everyone should enjoy this no matter how bad I am. All right. So who am I? Well, my name's Michelle Sliger, and I volunteered at the Dumb Friends League as a mentor for the Junior Volunteer Club, which helps train kids on the pets in the shelter, how to care for them, activities of that nature. And so we used to teach the kids, this is how you pet a cat. So now I'm going to be teaching you, can I pet this cat? What do y'all think? All right, you think you can pet this one? No, you cannot pet this cat because the cat has an arched back, indicating fear, and its fur is sticking straight up. And you can see the reason that it's terrified here off to the left. So no, this is not a cat that you want to pet. What about this one? Do you want to pet this cat? No, this is not a good cat to pet. What's interesting about this cat, though, is that you can see how its ears have started turning to the side. So, in addition to the arched back and the hair sticking straight up, there's also this thing that we call airplane ears. Okay. So airplane ears is when the cat's ears flatten, turn to the side, and they look like wings sticking out, of an airplane. And so should you pet this cat? No, don't pet a cat if it's got airplane ears. It's very frightened. What about this cat? Do you think you can pet this one? Uh, Trick question. Yes, you can. This is a Scottish fold. While it might look like airplane ears at first, this breed is bred specifically for the cute little ears that flop over like this. So this one's perfectly fine to pet. What about this one? You think you can pet this cat? No, you cannot pet this cat. This cat is hissing. So we've got arched back, hair sticking straight up, airplane ears, and hissing. If the cat does any or all of those things, don't pet that cat. What kind of cat can you pet? Let me show you. You can pet this cat. Any cat that approaches you with its tail up is signifying a greeting. This cat is a happy cat with its tail up. You may also see cats with a little hook on the end of their tail. This is also a cat that is greeting you, ready to be petted. Sometimes you may come upon a cat who's resting. This is what we call the meatloaf pose. And as long as the cat has its paws and tail tucked in, here's the underside view for those of you who are interested, and you see how its tail is wrapped around it. If you see something like that, that indicates the cat is very relaxed. It's perfectly fine to pet that cat. Right now, where should I pet the cat? All right. If it's a cat that you don't know, you want to stick to the head and the shoulders. A lot of you may be tempted to pat the cat along the back near the tail. They have a bundle of nerve fibers there. And for some cats, that feels great. But for other cats, it's very disturbing and painful, even. So please don't pet a new cat that you've never met before there. What about the belly? Can I pet the cat on the belly? No, don't pet the cat on the belly because the belly is one place where many kittens will grab you and use their back feet and what we call bunny kicks to try to disembowel you. It's just inherent in their nature, instinctual in case they're ever being attacked by a predator. It's how they defend themselves. Now, when you're petting cats, make sure that you occasionally stop because they don't like to be pet nonstop. If they want you to continue, they'll headbutt you or they'll slide up against you or they'll reach out and ask for more. And if you want to be sure that they're relaxed before you pet them, you can do what's called the slow blink. Do that a couple of times and then the cat will relax. I have been fostering this cat through PAWSCO. You can read more about her at pawsco.org, and I'll put the link in the chat window afterwards. She's a wonderful, sweet cat. She's 3 years old, very playful. Oh, that's my time, very talkative. I'm happy to answer any questions. She is ready to be adopted, folks. So if you'd like to learn more and you want to add a new furry friend, reach out to pawsco.org or just contact me. Thank you.
I forgot I'm sitting here going, whoa, yay,
That,
nice job.
I know, I had to unmute. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Love
Nice job.
that. Nice job.
Yeah, that one might win the internet for the day. Just saying.
That was really great.
A few questions.
We could take probably a minute of half a minute of questions.
Okay.
Just a quick one.
Are you still working with junior volunteers? Because these two applied, but then COVID hit right away. Is that open again?
I know. In fact, I had to, back when they expanded the Dumb Friends League, they switched the day from the Junior Volunteer Club from Saturday to Sunday. And that was my travel day. So I had to drop out of the program, which is why I'm working as a foster now for PAWSCO. So I haven't been in touch with the folks at the Dumb Friends League in like 2 years.
Oh, okay. Cool presentation.
That was awesome.
Nice job.
I just wanted to thank you because cats scare the living daylights out of me. So I needed that tonight.
Nice. If you have any additional comments you want to put in the chat, please do so, because Michelle, you did a great job. And as just to move forward, but please make sure you put the stuff in the chat and use that as part of the communication tool. So
Yeah, that was great.
okay, so next up is Ben.
Cool. Let me share my screen. Host is disabled participant screen sharing.
She's funny that way, that Nancy.
Yeah,
She's just,
I don't know how I'm going to follow up against cat.
I'm
pictures.
stingy
I'm
with
just
the
not that
hosting
cool.
thing. Be very stingy. You should be good now.
Cool. I'll go into presentation mode. All right, so mine is not about cats. Again, sorry. It's just about Scrum and Agile. So what I'm going to talk about is autonomous teamwork, which is an implementation of Agile. It's actually much larger than I can present here, so please hit our blog for articles on it. And I'm going to talk today about how it applies to the daily Scrum. So I should probably tell you first what autonomous teamwork is. It's an implementation of Agile that realizes that if you want developers to be happy, you have to recognize that they're highly paid professionals who live off of focus. Like they need to focus on their work. And to that end, Agile teamwork says use software, intelligent software that understands context to handle all process coordination and mechanics instead of relying on meetings, thereby letting developers focus. For this to work, though, status has to be continuously updated and available so that the process has enough information and the people have enough information to coordinate. So I'm going to go look at exactly how this would transform your daily Scrum from the while using autonomous teamwork. Now, I'm going to preface this and say, unless you have something that looks like here, where you have block stories, etc., I wouldn't have a scheduled daily Scrum, right? If my software can handle all my status and planning for me, I wouldn't do it. But if you do have a a daily Scrum running, the autonomous teamwork lets you hot start it. So if you look at Dean Gilly over here, you can see that he's got a story that's blocked and he's got a story that requires input. So instead of having to go around in a circle and figure out that he's got this, you just know up front before the meeting starts that these issues have arisen. The whole team knows it and may have already actually started discussing it inside the software. You can also see that Dean's got a story that's in process, but it's yellow, which implies that there's something else going on with that. You might not be blocked, you might be running behind, and we can figure out what's going on. Conversely, you can see that Kara is doing okay and doesn't really require anything. She's completed a story, and she can spend any time that she's allocated in the daily Scrum to issues that are important to her. These might be higher level team cohesion concepts, or they might be just in-depth technical discussions she wants to use her time in the meeting for. So if you get software to handle all of your status for you and present it coherently, continuously, your Scrum meetings become what the Agile manifesto and really what the Scrum guide says they should be, which is miniature planning meetings, instead of getting bogged down in the details of the process and how people are doing on their stories. which is unfortunately what I see most scrums do. That's the overarching concept. Does anybody have any questions? I wanted to leave a lot of time open for questions because I hit you pretty hard here. And there's a lot of information you can see here that I didn't necessarily present. No questions?
Well, if you have a question, make sure you're not on mute.
Oh yeah, Daniel.
So maybe you said and I missed it. In what way does this information get updated? Is it directly inside of the tool, or does it tie into IDEs or other
Great question. So if your software and Euclision is the implementation there it understands context about communication, each one of these stories actually is a full communication forum in and itself, right? So if I would step in here, I can't because this is a screenshot, but I could see that when this story went blocked, Dean would have put a reason why he's blocked. And that would actually start an entire discussion section and would have the concept of having resolutions on it. Similarly, this requires input. This can be a whole distributed decision. I'm sure you've seen these where I want to make decisions. That's all integrated in the software. So the software is smart enough to figure out that, hey, I opened a question or I opened a decision on my implementation details. I need to alert the team status that it is now in an area where the team has to give input, right? Similarly, if someone says, hey, raises a blocking issue on it, that story is now blocked. The team needs to understand it. Moreover, I need to go alert the rest of the team so that the team can come in and fix it without having to call a meeting for it. So by the time we do get to meeting, all the context is already available and boxed in the discussion area we need it to be. This other column, ready to start, is about the rest of autonomous teamwork, which advocates a Kanban flow instead of in addition to sort of your normal planning, which is sprint goals. This says story creation should be integrated and continuous as well. And this red here actually means the software knows that nobody's seen this yet, so they should take a look at it, and they'll be alerted accordingly. But the core idea here is, look, it's 2020, soon to be 2021. We have the tools available to actually make all of these things that we're spending mechanical time on, like what did you do? What are we thinking of doing? Let's let the software do this all the time for us. And just let's bring our Scrum process up to the higher level concepts we're trying to do, like business value.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you know, when we are talking about the Agile, is give a value the face-to-face. And don't you think that takes that value off?
No, actually, I think that the fact that we are putting process things, which are mostly mechanical and not using our higher level brain thinking, right, into our face-to-face communication is actually devaluing the face-to-face communication. This is the most expensive method of collaboration we have, because everybody has to go synchronize. Like, you can literally bill it in terms of staff hours required to do it. So we should be spending that effectively and only be talking about things that require it, right? I'm not saying don't hold a daily scrum. I wouldn't, because I tend to think that if there's nothing that requires it, let people focus. But if you do want to have team cohesion, right, do it. Just don't spend that time talking about process mechanics or process coordination, because we can do that in software. Spend it on what really matters, like team building, overarching goals. What do we want to do, right?
Thank you.
Well, great. We have, I think, one more minute. Not in this 5, but just in case somebody else has a question.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
I'm curious as to, I mean, I know a little bit about Jira, but I haven't used it extensively, and I'm researching it now. It's my understanding that Jira does more or less what your tool here is doing, but I could be wrong. I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Jira will do anything you want if you spend enough time configuring it, right? You can put any number of plugins to put anything you want, right? So to say that Jira does it is true. I can never refute that. The problem is it usually requires you to pay some integration team, 6 months worth of wages and spend 6 months getting it to work, right?
Or to get it to work fully like this software, you'd have to spend like we did.
So there's a few key things that are required to get software to the level where they can take over your mechanics. One of which is that you have to have a workflow that's compatible with Agile built in that knows things like, hey, when I throw a story in progress and I make a progress report, that actually means that I don't have to go flash it yellow telling the rest of the team that it's on or off track, no matter what the estimate is. Or correspondingly, like if I have something in review and someone gives me a to-do, like I need to know that I can't move that forward. And you can configure Jira to do all of these things if you have a near infinite amount of time. But that's not a reasonable thing to ask an Agile team to do, right?
Even then, if you go into the requires input, that one would have a full dialogue in it where people can vote on options. That you actually can't do it with Jira, no matter how much time you had.
Right.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Ask the. I'll talk all day. It's whether we have time.
I know,
Well,
but
yeah,
just-
I don't want to take a,
I think we can go for another minute. But 6:45, we want to make sure that Daniel starts. So very quickly.
oh, okay. Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, would it be a correct assumption that this focuses just on the daily Scrum part? And if you're using some other tool, like a larger enterprise tool, like you have these things work in concert somehow?
No, the actual software is
Is
written
that
for the
is that a
full.
use case?
If I'm understanding correctly, the whole software, which you can find the link here, is actually focused on the whole flow, right? It actually envisions enhancements to the planning meeting, right? There's retrospectives and the review, right? This is the whole gestalt. As far as integration goes, it's not built around the concept of integrations, primarily because these, like, you have to decide very carefully what the integration wants to do, right? But if there's something you need, we could of course look into it. But it's built out of the box to do what is required to move basically Agile implementation into this world where we can up level.
Jira is essentially an issue tracker. I mean, I know it's been many years, but they started as an issue tracker and they're still an issue tracker. So you basically put bugs in Jira and the stories would go in inclusion.
Hey folks, I'm gonna interrupt for a second. I think the time is up, but I think I would highly encourage Dan and David and anyone else that's interested in talking to Ben further. That Ben, maybe you could put your contact information into the chat, and then you guys can go back and forth. So I know Daniel's like over there doing a tap dance. I know he isn't really. He's like, hey, I got all night. Don't worry about it, me, Marie. But in the interest of time. I would love to thank you very much, first of all, both of you, for doing a lightning speech. This is, this is sign language for yay, thank you. So thank you very much for doing the lightning speech, our talks, I'm sorry. That was great. We have that sign up sheet and we're going to encourage people to just kind of do that. See, it wasn't so bad. People were just asking questions. And so I think it was nice, and I'm glad you two were the first two that took up the opportunity, and so thank you. We appreciate it. So I guess let's just kind of turn it over to Daniel. Daniel, I'm not going to say, hey, this is Daniel, and here's his bio, and you have to go off mute first because we can hear you. I can see you laughing, but I can't hear you laughing.
That's all good. All good.
So anyhow, thank you for joining us, Daniel. We're looking forward to this presentation, and take it away.
Yeah, and I would say thank you also here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to move my Zoom over to here so it looks like I'm actually looking at you all. Problem with the two monitors, right? So I do want to say thank you, by the way, as much as they were joking before about fighting over getting me into a meetup. You both have been, everyone, that whole Agile Denver space has been wonderful about creating a space to be able to come and have conversations and do talks and that kind of thing. And yeah, it's hugely valuable for me. I hope it is at least half as valuable for the people who have to listen to me. So thank you. I really, really appreciate you creating this space.
You're very welcome. Thank you for creating.
Now we'll, where are we? Now we'll try screen sharing and prepare for our first technical fiasco of the day. Let's see. With any luck, you'll see a browser that has Google Slides on it, and it says, "Don't panic, a Hitchhiker's Guide to Agile Transformation." Any chance that's true?
True.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So I guess real quick, we'll do the obligatory here's who I am. I know many of you, but I'm Daniel Lynn. I'm Agile coach and practitioner at Agile 42. There's some contact info if you want to talk about anything, you know, that's in here after this. Please feel free to reach out. But I'm just like, man, I'll talk about this all day long. So, you know, careful what you wish for. Couple of quick thoughts as before we dive in. We'll get the logistics out of the way early so we don't have to deal with it later. If you have questions, feel free to just put a question mark in the chat to sort of raise your hand. That way, if we miss it, right, you know, all these video things all over the place, sometimes it's easier to catch the question mark or just directly messaging the question than it is to notice that someone has one. I think this webinar will be recorded and shared, right? Or whatever we call this presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Slides will be shared. There are a couple other things that I'm going to use. We'll share all that. But what I want to talk about today is kind of the anatomy of an agile transformation. And some scratch paper may be helpful. If you're going through this right now, your organization is trying to go through an agile transformation, some scratch paper may help you kind of think of, well, how does this apply? You can jot down notes on how it applies to your environment. So there's my logistics. There's my Zooming working agreement. And let's start digging into the topic itself, right? So what I want to talk about tonight, I want to take just a minute to talk about why I'm doing this talk, but then we'll get into things like agile transformation goals and success factors in that, and how we make what are the conditions to make that actually work. I want to talk a little bit about culture and knowledge and habits and how those feed into an agile transition. And then my hope is that by the time we get to the end of this, you'll have an idea about kind of getting started. So if this connects to you and you go, yeah, that's stuff I should be thinking about at my organization, that you'll have something tangible to walk out of here. And tomorrow, tomorrow's Friday. Next week's a holiday. The next Monday, we'll make it nice and easy for you. The next Monday, you could go into work and start doing something with it. So why am I doing this talk? I want to share this because I think it's important to the context of this talk. I'm a coach and a trainer. Agile 42 goes in and helps clients with their agile transformations, and we have CSTs, so we do certified classes, that kind of thing. And I share this. It's not a pitch, don't worry, but I share this because I feel like I see the same things over and over and over again, and they're actually getting more common, not less common. And that is that organizations are diving in, they're putting money behind it, they're putting effort behind it, but no one's actually talked to them about what an agile transformation means. And so they have these huge blind spots, and I think it's a shame because no one, it's not out of like willful ignorance. It's just, I think it wasn't clear what they were going into, and then those blind spots slow them down and they can get frustrated with their agile transformation. I hear this in training classes. I hear it when I go to clients. And I think that's unfortunate. I think that as an agile community, that those of us who are professionals in the agile community have to perhaps admit that maybe we've screwed something up there. If so many people and so many companies don't know what they're walking into. And so this is one step in my personal process of trying to turn that around. And so today we're going to talk about exactly that question. When you say, I'm going to do an agile transformation, what are you actually saying, and what are you in for? So to have this conversation, we have to start with what the heck is a transformation? And let me just open it up. Anyone who wants to, if you want to unmute yourself and give me your best one sentence definition of what's a transformation.
Transfer from one state to another.
Cool.
maybe going from no process to some process.
Cool.
Change.
That's often true, right? I'm sorry, I spoke over someone.
Change.
Yeah, change. So yeah. So thank you. That was like as perfect as an answer as or set of answers as I could hope to be given. Right. So this is actually the big thing. It's not, sometimes there's this term adoption. And that's not what I'm a fan of. I know every single term that's out there gets criticized by someone, but adoption is actually one that I'm not a big fan of, because I feel like, oh, well, I'm just going to do this thing, or I'm just going to install this software. And that's actually one of the misconceptions that comes up all the time. We have Jira, now we're Agile, right? I have no gripes with Jira. I really don't. I feel like I'm one of like the 5 Agilists who don't. But it's not Agile, right? Like that's not what makes, that's not what makes your organization Agile. It is a change from one thing to another. In some cases, that's, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm going to put some ideas around it. So this is what we're going to dig into in this, is what is that change for your organization? Right? To do this, I am going to use an approach. It's that top one on here. It's the approach that I'm familiar with, because we use at Agile 42, the strategy mapping. And I'm going to use this for this conversation, but I really, really, really want to stress that it's one of many, many, many approaches, right? So as we're going through this, if you're feeling like, wow, that's a cool tool, I want that tool, as much as, right, as a business, I would love to sell you a tool. Please don't. Please don't think of it that way. I am using this one tool to show what a good Agile transformation looks like. I posted one of our competitors' tools here, Path to Agility, from David Hawkes, just to, there are other ones out there. And I also want to say something about things like scaling frameworks. A lot of times people use scaling frameworks to help them through transforming their organization to a more agile way of working. We have things like Less and Safe and Scrum at Scale. And they're all great also. But I couldn't say that without putting one little caveat on there. I see some confused faces. I'm guessing they're about the HelloFresh icon. Anyone know what HelloFresh is?
Weren't they bought by Amazon? I'm trying to think.
They might be now, but so HelloFresh is like these pre-boxed dinners, and they have everything that you need to make this meal. So though, if it's I had one the other night, and it was like Parmesan crusted chicken and pasta, right? And so the pasta and the herbs and the garlic and the chicken and everything's in this box, and it's awesome. Like, it makes a really good dinner, but that's the dinner you get. If you wanted pizza, too bad, you got Parmesan crusted chicken. If you wanted chicken curry, too bad, you got Parmesan crusted chicken. So I just want to scaling frameworks and any of these agile frameworks are great. They're awesome. I'm a big fan of a lot of them, but just realize you're building your organization around that, not the other way around, right? So I had to throw that caveat in. I wanted to give people an idea of, we're going to talk about these concepts, and then you might think, okay, what tools do I need to use to do it? Well, there are a lot out there. All right, enough beating around the bush. Let's dig in a little bit. The very first thing that we need, if we're going to talk about agile transformation, is a goal. And it is critical to understand that agile is not the goal. Right? Agile is just the thing that clears the path a little bit, right? It pushes the trees out of the way, and it moves the boulders. And that's all agile is. It's the thing that clears the path to the goal. And a lot of times when we talk about this, this becomes a bit of a sticking point in conversation, because a lot of people think agile is the goal, and in the back of their heads that might not be true, but they've got to take a moment to clear all this out of the way and get back to the back of their heads to figure it out. So what I want to ask you to do, because we're going to start on this, I want to ask you to consider for a moment, for your organization, if it's moved in an agile direction, why? What was its business goal in the first place? What was the thing that it wanted to accomplish that made it say, I think Agile will help us get there? Here's how I want to ask that question. If I can, I know this isn't like a new thing. Is it still showing the Menti thing? Okay, cool. So if you go to www.menti.com on your phone or on your computer, it'll let you put in this code, and you can share just in, relatively short form, right? Couple of words. What was the business goal that your organization was hoping to reach when you decided you wanted to tackle this Agile thing? Cool. Speed diagram. Awesome. I'll give maybe another 10 seconds for some last ones to come in.
Daniel, this tool's really cool.
I learned about it at Agile Denver. Someone else used it. I went, that's awesome. I'm writing that down.
Oh, great. This is so cool.
Yeah. So anytime you do a presentation, you say, hey, other people, please put input in. You take a little bit of a risk, because if they give you the exactly wrong kind of input, it throws your entire plan off. You've all been a very cooperative audience. Thank you. So we have a lot of cool stuff up here. But I'm going to challenge you a little bit, and I'm going to say that these aren't goals. That's a bit of a challenge. So I'm gonna back that up, right? And they are important. So don't worry, don't feel chastised. They are important, but they actually come after the goal. So I'm gonna shrink this a sec and go back to my slides. So when I talk about a goal, I might have business capabilities, I might have products, I might have services that are goals, right? I might have social missions that are goals, right? I'm gonna pick on someone who's in here. Teddy, can I pick on you and ask you what Scrum Alliance's goal is?
Our goal is to enable our members, to enable them to create better workplaces.
Cool. Sorry to pick on you. I'll owe you a beer or something once we can get together again. But that's a business goal, right? That's an organization, or even departments can have goals like that. And that's the kind of thing that we want to think of as a goal. And as an organization, you could say, well, I have that goal, and I don't think that with the capabilities we have now, with the way we work now, we're going to be able to be effective. Let me start that sentence over. I don't think we're going to effectively get to that goal. And so I might try to move to a more agile way of working, because I think that might help me get to that goal. Right? So that's the kind of goal that we want to focus on when we talk about, well, we want to undertake a transformation, right? Because again, go back to that definition. A transformation is a change. We are changing who we are as an organization. And that should be for a good purpose, right? We don't just want to do it because, I don't know, it's a Wednesday. or because we got a new VP. That's not a good goal. Similarly, I always caution people against money goals and staff growth goals. They feel very measurable and they feel very comfortable, and no one complains about making a couple extra $1 million or $1 billion, depending on who your company. But now I know we have people who aren't from Denver, so maybe this wouldn't work as well. But I usually tell people in Denver area or in Colorado in general, if you want to make more money, you can just open up a grow house, and that seems to work pretty well in Colorado. And they say, but that's not our mission. I say, well, of course, that's why it shouldn't be your goal. Similarly, staff growth, right? I want to double my staff. Okay, go double your staff. Like, just hire a bunch of people. I can go get you a bunch of people right now. So even these are kind of indicators of growth. These are results that happen because we've met our goal, not goals themselves. So, okay, so we have our goal, whatever that happens to be, right? And if you have those things that you said before that were on, right, that were on this word cloud, they're great things. We're going to come to this stuff in a minute. But if this is the thing that people talk about when they say this is our business goal for Agile, push them harder. Why? Why do you want these things? What are we trying to accomplish that we can't accomplish without these things and without this Agile transformation, right? Because that's what's going to motivate. That's what's going to motivate you to really push through all the challenges. Worked with an insurance company, and they wanted to be the leading insurance company in a particular industry, right? In a particular insurance space. That was their goal. We want to be the top out of everyone. Awesome, fantastic goal, right? And we need to change how we work and what we do in order to reach that. So once you've got that, what do we do with it? This is where we actually kind of, oh yeah, sure, please.
So I totally, completely buy the frame it in terms of business goals we want, but how do you connect the dots? Like, how do you show them that transforming, doing an Agile transformation will get you there? Because that seems where the hard part would lie.
Yep. So actually, that's the exact next thing we're going to get into. But I appreciate you asking a question, because it's probably actually a good time to pause and see if there are any other questions about the goals.
If anybody wants to come off mute and ask a question, I don't see any in the chat right now.
I'll ask another. So your thesis is basically that whenever you're talking about advocating for Agile or transformation, you always have to bring it back to the business, right? Like it can't be like to make developers happy. It can't be do this. It's got to be completely for like, we need to do this, otherwise we can't do other things, right?
Yeah, I mean, it has to. Like the reason I have all this hesitation, right, is because a lot of modern businesses are looking not at simply the financial business goals. What are your social, their social goals, their environmental goals. You look at companies like Patagonia, who you look at their sourcing practices. So that's the one exception, right? Like there are definitely organizations that part of their business goal is these social impacts, both internally and externally. And so there I could see making a case for things like I want this to be the most enjoyable place to come to work, right? Menlo Innovations, they're just south of Chicago, I think. That's one of their things. The guy who runs that company literally wrote a book called Joy Inc., right? So that definitely matters there, right? That is a business goal there. But setting that aside, yeah, I would say that those having happy and engaged employees becomes the next thing that we're going to talk about. So actually, I think that one might come to two down, but okay. So once I understand my business goal, I want to get into these enabling success factors. What is it that would enable me to reach that goal, right? And here's where we start talking about all the stuff that you just put up on that word cloud, right? And I have 3 here. I'm going to go down to the next slide. So, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we have 3 here. And when I put these up, I want to stress that we could probably come up with dozens, right? We could come up with one of these little cards for every single thing that you put in that word cloud. I picked 3 because they're common. and they're the ones I thought of. So usually if I were to do this particular activity with a client, we actually wouldn't start with a bunch of them. We would help them develop their own. But I figured, but I actually wanted to start with a few because it makes it more concrete, gives people something to grab onto here. So the 3 that I put on here is connecting work to value, right? This is a really, really common one. A lot of organizations do work and they feel like they're not sure what they got out of that work. They just have a pile of work. And so this is a really big one that we see. Moving faster, right? One of the most common reasons to try to pick up, Scrum, Kanban, any of the other Agile umbrella items. What was Sutherland's book, Twice the Work in Half the Time? And then innovation. I can't count the number of times that someone had a consultant come in, a business consultant come in, and they said, diversify your portfolio. You're too operational. Be more innovational. Go learn Agile. And well, there you go. So, so these are the 3 that I wanted to start with. So these are success factors. And we would talk about success factors in a hypothetical. So it's really important as you're getting into it, don't make promises to yourself that you don't know are going to happen. We usually write this as we expect. So this is, again, I'm using the framework I'm used to, right? You're going to see that coming out. And part of that framework is we use this phrasing. By creating a clear connection between work and value creation, we expect to be able to make choices that maximize value for the same or less work, right? By moving fast and pivoting faster, we expect to be able to adapt to whatever the market throws at us. And by building a learning culture in our standard operations, we expect to find creative ways of working and creative solutions to customer problems, right? So we are leaving in that we don't know for sure. We haven't done any of this yet, but we're being clear about our expectation. By creating this particular success factor, we think that will help us get closer to our goal, which we stated before, in this way. So again, I want to keep bringing this back to your organizations. Think about your organizations. If you're going through this agile, this agile transformation, think a little bit about if you had to pick one of these to focus on, right? Which one would be the closest to yours? And I'm going to do another little poll if Mentimeter cooperates with me.
We have a question too.
Oh yeah, let's do that while I'm trying to get this going.
Miss Bunny.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't resist the name. So I just quickly, without derailing this too much, Daniel, what I find when you're talking about things like these success factors with clients is that it's very easy for them to throw out abstractions. So the word innovation can mean something different. And it really stood out to me that your definition there of innovation was different than one I would have used. So as part of this process that you have them define their abstractions specific to their context, or do you provide them some kind of pre-baked stuff?
So if we were doing this as like a workshop activity, I wouldn't give any of the pre-baked stuff. To be honest, it would be 100% built by them. Right?
Okay, great.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I will say, right, if I take it out of my personal context, there are other approaches that are similar in that they start from a goal, look at what helps you get to your goal, and then what actions you want to take towards it. So similar types of frameworks that do have a bunch of pre-built things. And the trade-off there, right, is that if we build it from the ground up for you, then it is geared 100% for you, and it's for your context and your understanding of these terms. But you're building it all yourself. Whereas if you come like what I did in this presentation with a bunch of pre-built stuff, it gives you something to grab onto if you're unsure. So that's the trade-off between the two approaches. And I don't think
you're describing Path to Agility at least as one of those frameworks, and it is valuable for giving people something to hang on to.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. So if anyone wants to, you can go to menti.com, right? If there's anyone else who wants to, you can put in that code and it'll just ask you, of these three, here I'm going to go out of this presentation mode a second. Yeah, but of these three, which one connects to your context better? Yeah, maybe there are a couple seconds. So that's interesting. Nothing on the innovation side. Yeah, so this is kind of like a throw it in because frankly there's no better place to do it. But it is important to understand that as you work through these, one of your goals when you have these, again in our approach we would call this potential success factors, which just means we think this will help us get towards our goal, is you want to validate it. Right. So one of your first goals is going to be to validate it, to know. You don't want to put a ton of energy into it if it turns out it doesn't help you get to your goal. And so things transfer from these potential success factors. By doing this, we expect that, to these confirmed success factors. We've learned that by doing this, this is the impact. And this is really, really important with anything that you say, we can measure it by, right? So once we say that this definitely works, we can measure it because we have this dashboard of business metrics, and we can see that the choices that we have made has led us to a more rapid increase in value creation, right? So when we talk about success factors, again, I just want to really, really stress that this is kind of laying out a roadmap for your Agile transformation. And part of working through a roadmap should be that you're validating you're getting where you're going. We wouldn't lay out a trip from here to Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, and then hope we got there. Like we look, if I see Kansas, if I see Ohio, I know I'm really getting close. If I see California, I'm going the wrong way. So same thing with your Agile transformation. You want to see that you're progressing along. Oh, I'm behind on my slides. Any thoughts on these before I talk about the next level down? Okay. So like any good Agilist, we want to limit WIP. So maybe you pick one or two of those to start focusing on. And you say, okay, we have these success factors. How do we create the conditions for us to validate them? Or if we validated them and they're confirmed, how do we create the conditions to get the most out of them? Really use that Agile transformation to fulfill our business goals, right? And so we're going to have another level down on here. And again, this is not exhaustive by any stretch of the imagination. For each of these three, I picked 4 of these ideas as an example, basically. But you can see that if I have this idea that connecting work to value is important to my organization, right? What are some of the things that I'm going to want to do? This is where we get into our Agile experience and expertise, right? So things I might want to do: identify and eliminate waste. What's all the extra stuff that isn't helping, right? And get it out of here. I might want to strengthen product ownership in my organization because that creates people whose entire focus is value. Maybe I don't measure my value creation. I have no value measures. Well, how will I know if I'm creating more value, right? And of course, I wouldn't be a good Scrum coach or trainer if I didn't tell people to connect teams to customers and users, right? I could take the same approach with the other two. I'll kind of share them real quick, right? So if we want to move faster, we have limiting WIP. So work in progress, for anyone who's not familiar with the acronym. Limiting the amount of work in progress enhances our response time. Potentially releasable increments every sprint, right? If I wrap it up, I can adjust my plans and pivot very, very easily in my product, as opposed to if things spill over from sprint to sprint. I want to plan for change. Am I planning in a way where I expect change and I see the different paths in front of me? And of course, call out to the Agile Manifesto: technical excellence enhances agility, right? So am I investing in those technical skills? And then finally, last set of examples for innovation, right? Am I leaving time to explore problems, right? our teams experimenting in new ways of working and then sharing the results of those experiments out with other teams? Am I running multiple product experiments? So when I try to do something on my product, am I trying different things and seeing which one works out best? And am I celebrating failing fast? When someone realizes they're going down a dead end, they discover it early and they stop wasting time there. Are we celebrating that and cheering them on for it, right? So if you spent any time in the Agile community, none of these are probably new to you, right? But we've started at the goal. We've looked at, well, what are the big benefits, these success factors that would allow our Agile transformation to feed into that goal? And now we get into what are the things Agile says we should do, right? Using that big broad umbrella Agile. What are the common things that coaches and trainers and speakers and that kind of thing says, hey, you should do this and you'll be able to be more Agile. And now that we look at those, we can kind of pick them. Right? This is the one that would be really helpful to me and I have an appetite for doing right now. And I'm sure it won't surprise you that we have a small format for this, and this is the part that I actually want to hand it over to you all with. When we talk about these, we can frame these conditions as if we don't do whatever, then we'll have this result, right? So at this point, I'm actually going to take a quick moment, and some of you may not be used to this particular tool. I'm going to use a tool called Miro. I was going to do it in Google Slides. I was a little worried about the number of people that were going to be in here and that we'd gum up Google Slides. So I'm going to share with you a link. I'm going to put it in the Zoom chat. And then I'll share my screen and show you what we're looking at. And if I can get the chat to open up. And while I'm doing that, I see that there are a bunch of chat messages in there, and someone yell at me if I've missed a question in there.
I've been watching. I think we're good. Or yell at me if I missed something.
So I just pasted the link inside the chat, and it will ask you for a password. I'm going to paste that password next. It's just don't panic with an apostrophe. And because we're recording this and people may see it, I don't know how long this board will necessarily stay up after tonight, but what I will do, Miro lets you export things as PDFs. So what I'll probably do is export as a PDF and then add it onto the Meetup site. That way, if someone is looking at this video, goes, what are we doing? They have a place that they can go to see it. So now I'm going to switch my screen share just so that I can show you what's on the Miro board. I'll give a super quick, here are the bits you might need to know about how to use Miro for this exercise. And then I'm going to let you all dive in.
So we have a question that says the link's expired. It's asking for.
Oh no, that's weird. Because some people got in.
Let me see.
I wasn't initially getting in, and I think maybe I might have been screwing up the password. I don't know.
Well, if it says link is expired, I wonder whether or not, just because we had a lot of people hit it at once, can you try it again and see if it lets you in this time?
Maybe with a new tab.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot.
Yeah, I have had to do that where I had to put the link in the address bar, which is frustrating. There's no reason that it should do that.
It worked. It just worked for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I
I'd
got in too.
recommend not copying and pasting. I had that issue, and then if you type it too, yours work better.
Should lock some of these so they don't end up getting drug around. Okay, so I think I'm sharing my screen. You should see Miro at the moment on my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Three things that are going to be super helpful when we do this exercise. One, in the bottom, I'm going to shrink it so there's this little thing down here in the corner. You might even only see the percentage. That's a zoom percentage, but you can come down here, use that to zoom in and out. Your mouse wheel may or may not work. It kind of seems dependent on your computer setup. And there's this little map thing here. And if you open that up, you can actually drag your way around here really easily. So that can be convenient. So there's one thing I wanted to show you. And then the other thing I wanted to show you, because there's always this massive headache, this arrow here on the toolbar, if I click it, it becomes a hand, and then I can't actually interact with anything on there. I'm not 100% sure this was a great design decision, but if you're seeing this happen and the arrow here is black, if you click it, it'll become blue, and that'll let you start interacting with things. Like dogs. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'm going to zoom in over here. And we're going to actually, could I ask for one of you to set up, for the number of people we have, I think 3 breakout rooms would be fine. Okay. So we can just randomly assign them. And you're going to go into a breakout room. When it asks you to go into a breakout room in Zoom, look at 1, 2, or 3, right? You should see breakout room 1, 2, or 3. So the way that'll work is group 1 will focus on this stuff here, this connect work to value. Group 2 will look at this move fast. And group 3 will look at the section for innovation, right? And in your group, I want to ask you to take a couple minutes, and these things down here, you'll notice that they're all empty templates. And so what I'd like you to do is fill some of them out as they correspond to these items under here. So for example, I'll do one real quick with us. We say strong product ownership empowers a focus on value. So I want you to go a little deeper than that and think of what's a condition that has to be true to have strong product ownership focused on value. And maybe one of the things I say is if we don't have dedicated product owners, then they won't have time to, I don't know, let's say to do the PO job and focus on value, right? So I'm sure many of us have this experience where someone is a product owner plus a project manager plus a fry cook in the truck outside, and right, and it's very frustrating. It's very unfair to them. So if we do that to our product owners, we're probably not going to get strong product ownership in our organization, right? So
Daniel, we have a question.
Yeah.
Dan Feldman was asking, how do we bring up the 3 group overview in the lower right corner?
This?
Yeah, I think this, yeah. And
yeah,
Bob,
so
you were saying like,
what you probably see in your lower right-hand corner at the moment is maybe just this percentage. If you mouse over it, the whole bar will come out, and then you can kind of mouse over this map. Did that solve it for you?
Dan, you're on mute.
No, well, no, because I tried to, I couldn't find my little cursor, so I opening an account, I guess, and so I'm not on the screen.
Shouldn't make you do that. Oh, you shouldn't have to. It should let you just log in as a guest.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's another thing to
I
show
did
you
try 3
all.
or 4 times to log in as a guest, but it did eventually work.
I'm sorry, it might be kind of taxing a little bit. So important thing you'll find very, very helpful. Up on the top here is this little cursor thing next to all of our little pictures. And if you want, you can click it and not see anyone's cursor anymore. So if you're getting dizzy with cursors flying around the screen, that's how you turn it off. Okay. Are we okay to do breakout rooms?
I have 3 ready to go.
Awesome. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to do 8 minutes. And I'm going to put a little timer here on Miro so you know that 8 minutes is counting down. And in your room, you can divvy it up however you want. But I'd love for you to fill in a couple of these templates. Draw on your Scrum experience and what are some of the conditions that you can fill in that would meet, whether it's product ownership, connecting customers to team, right? Limiting work in progress. We'll close the breakout rooms.
Yep.
We're good. All 3 of them had some good progress, and
closing.
I'm signing up for 2021, Daniel.
You're doing
Nancy
what?
Nancy and I are signing up for 2021 meetups. So.
Yep. Oh, cool.
So start thinking.
Be ready. Yep.
All right. Give everyone a minute to get back and get the video going.
5 seconds.
I want to be
Cool.
absolutely clear. Our room was best. Okay.
I learned something new tonight.
So it looked like everyone, each of the groups got a number of different things. And there's one more step that I have in this. And I've stopped sharing my screen. Give me just a second. Get that slideshow back. Everyone loves a good slideshow, right? All right. So we just did this, and the idea here, right now we're really drilling down to what's the impact that we want to have on our organization. Now this is where it gets actionable. And the only real step left is to talk about how we make that impact. And there are a lot of answers, right? There's no like, this is the one way to make that impact. But there's a little bit of guidance I can provide. And I want to do that by talking about 3 different things: culture, knowledge, and habits. So when we talk about acting on these things, we are probably influencing one or more of these 3 things, right? We're influencing the culture of the organization and trying to change that culture. We are injecting knowledge into the organization, teaching new things, and with that new knowledge, people will change their behavior and things will work differently. Or we're changing habits, right? We have certain things that we do as our normal procedure, and we're changing those, right? And it's not just one of these. A lot of these require a couple of them. And so what I want to ask you to do is, in that same Miro board, and I'll just a shorter time frame, just going to put up 2 minutes so that you can kind of play with it a little bit. We don't have to get through all of them, but underneath those cards you were just filling out, if you scroll down a little bit, there's little pentagons that say H, K, and C. And if you click it, you can right click on it and copy and then paste it and drag them onto the cards. So if you think that a particular card requires change in habits, the acquisition of new knowledge, or change in the organization's culture, go ahead and drag that pentagon onto the card. And we'll just give a couple minutes, do as many of those as you feel like. And it can have more than one, right? You don't have to just pick one. If you think it's all 3, put in all 3.
What do the H and the K and the C stand for?
Oh, sorry. That's so I'm sharing on my screen like culture, knowledge, and habits. So when we say we want to change this thing in our organization, is it a cultural change, an acquisition of knowledge, or a change in habits or processes? So it's funny, when I started putting together this presentation, like I said, one of the things that was on my mind is that people seemed to not have a good understanding of what they were walking into and what it was going to take to have an effective agile transformation, and that they were really happy with. And sometimes that meant just sending a bunch of people to a class to get certified. And sometimes that meant installing a piece of software or going out to a consultancy and having them change their processes. And so that's what I thought I was going to be talking about in this presentation when I started it. And then I got to here and realized I haven't talked about that at all, right? Where did that go? And part of that was just, as I was building this presentation, I realized that the important thing was not those things. The important thing was, do you have a roadmap for what an agile transformation means to you? And a way to make sure that whatever action you take, all the money and effort and political capital and energy that you put into that it's getting you where you need to go for your business goal. That was the important thing. But sooner or later, it does come down to the brass tacks and the discrete actions. And so I wanted to put a little bit of something in here to at least tie back to that. So, okay, you got to this point, now what? And I feel like this does it a little bit of injustice, because I'm giving a really short answer. But generally speaking, if you said, well, that thing requires knowledge, that's what classes and workshops and lunch and learns, you know, attending conferences, attending meetups like this, that's going to really move the needle on this. Now, of course, you have to pick the right ones to do. But if you had one that said, if we don't understand the basics of Scrum, we won't even understand how it's supposed to work and we won't apply it right. Fair enough. Go to a CSM. Fantastic. That is exactly what those kind of classes are for. And that is going to deliver you that value for that part of your Agile transformation, right? You know, these changes in habits are about changes in practice, and that can be consultants that talk about what your processes are. It can be coaching. It can be internal or external, right? If you have Scrum Masters, part of their job is coaching the organization, and if they're not doing it, harass them a bit about it, right? Not to mention just I'm sure most organizations, especially large ones, have tons of people who have, you know, who have their MBAs, and they have this expertise in process and changing habits and making change in an organization. Leverage that for those things where you're just trying to change the habits to put that into place. And if you're changing culture, this is the one that I feel the worst about, because, man, we could do conferences on this, but culture comes down to stories. It comes down to the stories that people tell each other about what success looks like in an organization and what failure looks like in an organization. And the only way to create new stories is to get out there and help make them happen, right? They have to be real. So if you want people to take more ownership of things, ask them to, and celebrate when they do. Right? You know, then they're going to have that experience, and I guess share that experience with other people. That's where your stories come from, and that's where the cultural change comes from. So I want to wrap this up by just kind of reminding you that you can draw a path between it. I'm going to switch my screen sharing for just a moment and put my Miro board back up. Right? And like I said, these are just examples of these things, but from whatever my goal is, I think that this dog looks like the perfect business goal. So that's gonna be my goal. And I can draw a line, right, that goes through, a red line, that feels weird. Right? I can draw a line that says, to accomplish this business goal, the most important of these benefits that I want to get out of Agile is moving fast. And when I say moving fast, I mean that I want to learn quickly and have something to show for the work I've done, and then move on to the next right thing. And so this is the one that deserves my most attention right now, right? And maybe this thing right here and this thing right here, those are the first two things that I want to make happen. So we're going to take that class, right? Because that's a knowledge thing, and we're going to start rewarding people and celebrating people who do this thing, because that's going to start moving our culture. And when I approach my Agile transformation this way, at every step of the way, I can see it translating to getting me closer and closer to that adorable dog at the top of my screen, or whatever less exciting business goal you might have, right? And whether you use this particular approach or you use one of the other approaches, or there's a framework out there that is just the thing you're looking for and you start implementing that framework, it doesn't matter. You can still take it a piece at a time. You can still apply this logic. What are the parts that I care the most about? What are the pieces that have to be in place? What are the conditions that need to be there for me to accomplish that? You can still apply that same logic. And those are the transformations that are going to stick, that are not going to be just adopting a new set of terms and a new set of meetings, but are going to be a real change in your organization that allows you to reach those business goals. And then with that, any questions?
Daniel, thank you so much before everybody leaves, but thank you so much for entertaining us and sharing your wisdom. We appreciate it.